Hi everyone, welcome to Self-Care Through Photography. My name is Gina Sapienza. I am a program assistant at JFCS Career Development Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I'm here today just to share with how I process emotions through the use of photography as a self-care practice. And to give you a little bit of a background of my photography background, I'm not a professional photographer, but I'm a sort of more of an enthusiast. Photography enthusiast, I should say. And I have an associate's degree in visual communications from the International Academy of Design and Technology. That's where I sort of was introduced to photography and became more interested in photography. And through a lot of the projects there, I would actually incorporate the images I would take. And then following that, it was recommended to me to attend the Pittsburgh Filmmakers. So I enrolled in Pittsburgh Filmmakers as an independent student. And I took classes there from about 2009 to 2013. And it was then a discovery was made. I mean, I learned that, the practice of photography, like it's a great form of artistic expression, as well as great for documentation and for advertising and also just memorability and capture a moment, right? But then through some pretty major life transitions within sort of like within 2 years or 2-year time frame, the camera transformed for me into more of a healing instrument. And what it means, I started to take walks, and I started to take photographs of nature and landscapes and wildlife. And in doing so, found how calming and it was a stress reliever when I was doing that. And so then I also learned that just by looking through the viewfinder of the camera, being able to choose the elements within the frame gave me sort of a sense of freedom. And I think just, for instance, like with the pandemic, even like now with so much seems out of our hands and out of our control and just so much that's unknown, just being able to choose. I think it's just a matter of choice and choosing the elements in the frame, sort of as simple as it sounds, just kind of gave me a sense of, just a sense of freedom and of creative expression. And then also learning to take photos from different perspectives, I thought was really very, I learned a lot, because not only like you could, whether it's just lying down on the ground at the level of the subject that you're taking, like on your stomach, or lying on your back and looking up through the tree branches or through the sky, or stepping up on a chair, or maybe just on a hillside or the top of a building. And just that helps to maintain an open mind, I think, and just learning to see and increase awareness of different perspectives. And for me, that was a great lesson to learn as well. And using editing software, after I would take a photo and import it into my computer, and then use a software program to edit, I was able to enhance, whether it was the lighting, make it brighter or darker, or take the texture and change the texture, adding texture, or removing texture, or even just with color, either maybe saturating the color or desaturating the color. And just these little elements really helped to express emotions. So for instance, if I was having a bad day, sometimes just maybe making the photo image a little bit more muddy or dark, or removing some of the color kind of would help me express that kind of mood or emotion. Or and vice versa, sometimes it was the opposite, and maybe just adding light or sun and texture, and maybe extra color was kind of uplifting. And I think it just varied on how I was feeling, but I learned that really was very helpful and a great emotional release, and how important that is. I think that to use your, to be able to express your creative, just express what you're feeling through photography is just been ideal. And also then after I would actually take the image then, and even after I'd edit the image, just looking at the image and reflecting on it. Sometimes I'd find an image and I was just really surprised at how much the image really reflected what I was feeling. And that was really interesting as well. So what I have today, I actually have 10 different images I was going to share with you. and would like to share with you. And they're actually sequenced by the seasons. And I just want to just share a little bit about what I felt when I had taken the picture. And also I share a little bit of the symbolism of each, because I found it was interesting after, because at the time when I'm taking images, I'm not really thinking, oh gosh, I'm really depressed. This makes me feel, I'm not thinking about those emotions at that time. So after the fact though, it's just been pretty amazing. And I think when I started learning about some of the symbolism, it's pretty interesting. So for instance, to share some images, the following images, I have them sequenced by season. And I'm just going to talk about each image and just share a little bit about how the different types of emotions that it evokes and how it has helped me to also to express and to release some of those emotions. So this image here is actually, it's 9 Mile Run Trail in East Pittsburgh, in the East End. And this particular picture, I'm kind of I find myself drawn to pathways and railroad tracks, et cetera. I think they give sort of an optimistic feel. They have an optimistic feel to them, like of something out there, some things that can get better and improve, right? And this particular image was probably taken back, I think, in 2013 or 14. And it was during like a major life transition once again. So I was kind of going through sort of a lot of emotional pain, a lot of emotional pain, and just through a major transition in life. And this image, just I think alone, like the fog for me is just so beautiful. I mean, it kind of, the time, I think a lot of times when you are experiencing a lot of, going through major transitions in life, the fog is very representative of that. I think they're just kind of the unknown and the confusion and trying to figure things out as you go. And this picture sort of captures that, along with the, I think there's a lot of grayness to it too. And it's, like I said, it's in during the winter time. The symbolism too for it is really amazing. I would research each image and just look up some of the symbolism after the fact. And it was amazing how well it connected with what I was going through at the time. For instance, for the trees, the sense that forest and woods symbolize the unconscious, and as well as acquiring self-knowledge and transformation. And like for myself, like walking through, that's a lot of it. I was going through a transformation at the time and major transitions. So that was interesting. And this next image just kind of makes me smile. It definitely has a spring feel to it. And I actually I think birds are beautiful. And this here, I was looking up the symbolism of a robin, and a robin sort of represents the end of winter and the beginnings of spring. It's very, very uplifting. So this is an image for me that when I look at it, it kind of helps me to feel a little more optimistic. Trees, I think, are just especially beautiful. This tree here just gives me a sense of balance. And I love just the branching out, the way the branches themselves are branching out. And even like the rock in the middle there sort of gives a sense of stability. And when I looked at this to read up on, and this actually is the Homewood Cemetery, this image here is taking. It's very serene and very beautiful. There's a little pond there, and then some trees and rocks, and it's just very great place to just kind of probably a great place to meditate, actually. Very beautiful scenery. And this, so the symbolism of the tree too, they talk about is reaching the sense of the connection to the earth and sky. So that alone just kind of gives you a sense of being whole. I don't know, and just that, once again, that sense of balance. And also the green represents hope and renewal. So I think there's a lot of different shades of green in there, which is rather beautiful. And this image here, it's a gateway and is very welcoming, I think, and it gives me a sense of balance. And just the way that just the lines even in the image. And then once again, there's a pathway. This was taken at 9 Mile Run, and it's actually Lower Frick Park. Yeah, and so the gateway is representative to thresholds, and it's symbolic to entrances into new worlds, as well as the new life, or might represent communication between two worlds. Also, a communication between living and the dead. They say kind of holds similar symbolisms to both of those. And now this image was taken at the Heritage Trail. It was at the Three Rivers Heritage Trail, it's called, on the south side. This is on the South Shore. I just love railroad tracks, and once again, like pathways. sort of a sense of something that's out there, that things can change and get better, and gives you that sense of travel and new beginnings and sort of discovering the world, etc., which is, I think, rather beautiful. And I just also love the line, as far just the line and the composition of the image as well. And for symbolism, the train tracks are represented to choices in life and in life journey, and also, which to me, once again, like I'm saying, a lot of these pictures, I wasn't thinking these things at that time, but when I reflect on them afterwards, it's amazing that sometimes our subconscious, and we feel like we're not aware of what's in our subconscious, but whenever, like something like this kind of an act of taking a photograph reveals a lot of what we're feeling. I mean, I think if you do this yourselves, you'll find it's an interesting experiment to do anyway. And this is actually in Erie. My sister and I had taken a day trip. We, as children, my dad was a school teacher and he had summers off, so he would take us, and we would go on vacation for the summer for a week. And it was really exciting. There was a little place there. It was called the Braun Cottages, and we would get to choose. Well, we didn't get to choose, but it was always an excitement to find out what cottage we would have at the time. But this image here, so we went to visit to just kind of reminisce and to see what it looked like, since it's been many years since we had gone there as children. And just viewing the view itself, this here is just very serene and very tranquil. I think the combination between the sky and the water and the sand, the earth, and then just the waves as well. Waves have that sense of the inevitability of change. And for me, this gives me just a positive sense of change. And I know changes can be very difficult at times, but knowing and sort of embracing that is a part of life, and change is a part of life. And just sometimes that in its own just it gives a sense of peace for me anyway. And so I think this image, just is a very nice balance, sort of life balance, and sort of the cycle of life is what this image sort of represents to me. And this image, once again, this is in Erie, PA. It actually kind of pulls on my heartstrings a bit. It's a picture, it has a great sense of balance. And this is my sister, and she had asked me, hey, can you take a picture of me sitting on the bench? And she's actually going through a major life transition. She had just lost her husband in April. And it just seems so peaceful. And when I was looking up the symbolism of a bench, it was pretty ironic. It talks about, the bench represents contemplation and trying to make sense of the world. And I think that's a lot where she is right now. I think just when you lose, I think, a close one, or loved ones, if you lose someone very close to you, it's very difficult. And I think you are trying to make sense of life and the reason for things and why things happen. This is the 9 Mile Run. And just as a reminder, this is actually, they were preserving the watersheds to help promote a healthy urban environment. And this, I think, just with the colors and the texture alone, I think add just a certain vitality to it, and remind me a lot of, this is fall, but it also has sort of spring feel to it as well. And I think the color yellow, just especially, it's symbolic to joy and enlightenment and creativity, as well as sunshine, very similar to sunshine, but also can warrant caution, which I think just, the seasons changing too sometimes is, I think, kind of have that kind of feel to them as well. And this is interesting. This image is the house. This is called Yellow Dog Village, and it was an old lime mining town. They used to mine lime, and there was the mine was actually not far from here, and the owners of the mine built some houses for the employees to work, so they wouldn't have to travel as far. I think that the mines closed around 1950, and then around in 2000, due to the housing crisis, eventually the houses were deserted. The families had to leave, but what was interesting, they left a lot of their belongings behind. So a lot of the houses actually within had still like children's toys and furniture and clothing even. And this was actually, I attended a photography class called Vanishing Pittsburgh. So we had different sites that we toured. This was one of the sites. And this image, I think, is just really beautiful. I think it's a beautiful blend of happiness and sadness, of beauty but yet there's a certain sadness to it. But the environment, the trees around the light, I think just the way the light is hitting it, which is, I think, really beautiful. And but then again, you look at the house and it's been neglected and it's dilapidated, etc. So this is kind of mixed, but I think that's just like in life, though, I think for me, just sometimes better understanding that sorrow is a part of life sometimes, and the combination, just we're both meet, gives me a sense of peace somehow. But anyway, so this image, yeah, and in houses, I was just looking up the symbolism of a house, and usually it stands for naturally it's a place of a haven or refuge for folks, but when dreaming, the symbolism of dreaming, it's a dilapidated house is that's not cared for. It can also mean to indicate that a person's not taking care of things in their life, or perhaps feeling run down or not caring for self, etc. So that's interesting. I think an interesting element to that. But this image here is just very, wow, like this to me is representative of new beginnings, very optimistic, just the bird in flight. And this was actually a mistake. This was, once again, this was the 9 Mile Run Trail, and it was a snowy day. And this was about probably 2015, maybe 14, 15. And there was a really heavy snow that day. And I know I was just actually I was experimenting with my camera. And a lot of times when you photograph snow and trying to get the lighting between the white of the snow and then the contrast, and just trying to fiddle with the internal gray card. I don't know for anybody who studies photography, but made a mistake. I'm not sure what happened. And I made some adjustment, and this was the result, but it was just one of my all-time favorite pictures. And a lot of classes I've attended, they talk about mistakes in photography sometimes end up being a photographer's favorite photo. And I found with this, definitely this was the case. And just the translucent, when you look at the robin, the colors and the translucency of the wings, I think is just really amazing. But also the color of red, I think is symbolic to vitality and energy, etc., and action. So I think that's kind of a great way to end the slideshow here with this image. It has a very optimistic feel to it, and to kind of give us the idea that the future is there's still promise in the future, right? Things can get better, that kind of feel. So, and also, and just once again, the robin here, the symbolism, the bird in flight is a new beginning, good luck, and renewal. So my thoughts to share with you are just my recommendations would be to find a location where you can go. You can bring a camera. You can use your camera phone or an actual camera, a film camera or a digital camera. Take some images, and if you have the opportunity or have a software where you can actually do some post editing, it can really just to give it a shot. I think that can help definitely express and help release some of your emotions or what you're feeling. Both positive and negative, and it's okay. Just embrace it. I think it helps you to better understand what you're feeling when you're taking images and when you're reflecting on them afterwards. Overall, I think just expressing yourself creatively also is just gives you a sense of emotional, helps promote emotional health and well-being as well.